Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this week's news, a newly described Ethiopian crocodile prowled the same waterways as Australopithecus afarensis, or Lucy, to you and me, while fresh evidence shows Neanderthals skillfully worked a versatile natural material and may have hunted elephants 125,000 years ago. Early Neolithic communities traded ideas and goods across Europe. Stone tools hint at how the first humans reached Japan, and 15,000-year-old Natufian clay beads preserve 50 fingerprints from children to adults. A stratigraphic rethink shifts the timeline at Monteverde, Chile. Oviraptors appear less efficient than modern birds at incubation, and Korea unveils a new small plant-eating dinosaur from a juvenile skeleton. Okay, let's dig in. Here's what's making some headlines this week. Okay, first up, a rethink of dinosaur brooding. A new study modelled heat transfer in realistic oviraptorid clutches and found thermoregulatory contact incubation like modern birds was unlikely. Adults mainly warmed outer ring eggs. Inner ring eggs weren't fully contacted, and environmental heat played a big role. In cooler settings, a core outer ring egg could hatch earlier than the inner egg beneath, and in hotter settings, the inner rings may still win. The team also suggests that oviraptorids possibly used genotypic, not temperature-dependent sex determination, because their clutch temperatures would skew sex ratios otherwise. And this matters because it revises how we think bird-like behaviour evolved and shows oviraptorids likely co-regulated clutches with the environment rather than acting as primary heaters. Okay, over to a Neanderthal elephant story next. A multi-proxy study from the last interglacial site of Neumark Nord, around 125,000 years ago, used strontium ice escapes, enamel proteomics, and stable isotopes to track movements and sex, 3 males and 1 probable female. 2 males show highly radiogenic, pointing to foraging up to around 300 kilometres away in older bedrock regions before arriving at the lakeshore where Neanderthals hunted them. The other 2 likely lived locally. Carbon and oxygen values suggest different habitats, more forested versus semi-open. Why this matters? It ties Neanderthal selective hunting of adult males to realistic elephant mobility and landscape use, deepening our view of hominin megafauna strategies. Next, we head over to Chile. Monteverde might not be as old as we thought. A new stratigraphic and geochemical reassessment argues that the celebrated Monteverde II occupation sits on an inset floodplain younger than a tephra dated around 11,000 years ago, and radiocarbon from an associated unit falls around 8,000 to 4,000 years ago. So this challenges the 4,500-year narrative at that specific surface and urges independent verification at outlier sites. This new study refines the timeline of human arrival in South America and underscores the need for robust site formation control in claims of very early occupations. Okay, something that I've seen in a few publications this week, the earliest clay ornament tradition in Southwest Asia. Across 5 Natufian sites in Israel from around 15,000 to 11,650 years ago, researchers identified 142 fired clay beads and pendants, far earlier and richer than previously recognised. Types include elliptical, disc, spheroid, cylinders, rings, and butterfly forms. Many carry red hematite or clay engobe coatings. Fingerprints show both children and adults made them, and wear indicates regular use. The team argues that these ornaments emerged alongside sedentism and growing social complexity, and some shapes likely drew inspiration from plant grains and seeds. This is an interesting one because it pushes back the symbolic use of clay outside of Europe and reveals multi-generational craft and identity signalling at the dawn of the Neolithic transition. Personally, I find it always really fascinating to find anything with fingerprints from this far back in the past. Imagine being the one that discovered those. That's pretty cool. Okay, so we're heading over to Japan for our next story. And the story of its earliest humans is getting clearer and more complex at the same time. New excavations at high elevation sites are uncovering bladelets and pointed stone tools made from local materials, securely dated to more than 40,000 years ago, helping move past the early 2000s forgery scandal, grounding Japan's Paleolithic timeline in solid archaeological contexts. But it gets even more interesting. Finds from Nagano and Hiroshima suggest that Homo sapiens may have reached Japan via two routes. At Kosakayama, tools dated to around 36,800 years ago resemble North Eurasian blade technologies, while at Kanmuri, older tools at roughly 42,300 years ago align more closely with Middle Paleolithic industries from China, pointing to southern influences. This suggests a two-pronged migration, one from the north across colder grasslands, and another from the south through forested regions, with these groups potentially meeting in Japan. And this is really interesting because it gives a stronger dating and clearer technological patterns, finally giving us a much more reliable and nuanced picture of how Japan was first populated, not by a single wave, but by multiple movements over 40,000 years ago. Back to another Neanderthal news story this time. Neanderthal healthcare might have had a sticky helper. Experimental birch tar, made with Middle Paleolithic style methods, shows moderate antibacterial activity against Staphylococcus aureus, but no effect on E. coli. That suggests that Neanderthal birch tar, known as a hafting adhesive, could also have been used in wound dressing or skin ointment, echoing historic Sami and other indigenous peoples' use cases. The effect didn't depend on the production method, implying simple condensation tar could work. This is interesting because it adds a medicinal dimension to Neanderthal technology and supports a broader picture of care in Pleistocene societies. Next up, a story about early farmers on a fortified frontier. At Eisleben in Saxony-Anhalt, around 5375 BCE, one of the northernmost early linear pottery culture outposts, geomagnetics reveal multiple enclosure lines, ditches, ramparts, and palisades, possibly including a very early wide encircling system over 400 metres. New trenches uncovered intact settlement layers with in situ vessels and burnt daub. Strikingly, the site also yielded Mesolithic-style antler tools, including T-axes, and a roe deer antler mask, in inverted commas, pointing to hunter-farmer contact, exchange, and technology transfer right at the LBK borderland. This reframes early Neolithic expansion as a negotiated frontier with fortification, interaction, and blended tool traditions. Over to Ethiopia, where a Lucy-era crocodile has a bite. From the Hadar Formation, researchers named Crocodilius lucivenator, Pliocene in age, contemporary with Australopithecus afarensis, or Lucy. The skull and jaws show diagnostic knobs and cranial features, distinguishing it from modern Nile crocodiles and other African fossils. Some jaw lesions appear to be healed crocodile bite marks, likely intraspecific combat. Comparisons suggest multiple crocodile species coexisted regionally, with Hadar preserving at least this distinct taxon. Why this matters? Because it sharpens the ecological context in the rift during key hominin intervals and reveals croc diversity and behaviour in Lucy's landscape. And finally, my favourite story of this week, and possibly the cutest, a brand new dinosaur from Korea, with the first diagnostic dinosaur skull material ever found on the peninsula. Researchers have named a small, early diverging Doolysaurus, that's a great name, from the Il-Seongonsan Formation on Afei Island in the mid-Cretaceous, roughly 113 to 97 million years ago. The holotype is a partially articulated juvenile with skull, limb bones, and a tight cluster of 40 to 50 gastroliths. Micro-CT reveals detailed cranial anatomy. Histology shows rapid growth and unfused elements consistent with a 0 to 2-year-old. Phylogenetically, Doolysaurus nests within the Thescelosauridae and bolsters the idea that early diversification of thescelorids happened in Asia before dispersing to North America. Those gastroliths, by the way, weigh in at about 0.37% of estimated body mass, hinting at an omnivorous diet. This fills a major anatomical gap in Korea's dinosaur record, and reframes early thescelosaurid biogeography. All the articles used or image credits in this video are in the description. That's it for this week. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, subscribe down below, and I will see you next week.